Well, welcome to our second discussion with a PALMS participant, a program participant, someone who's been in the field. Last time I was interviewing Gita Cabrita, and today I have with me Helen Colla. Helen went to Samoa to meet the requests of the Don Bosco Technical Centre there. And Helen, I'm going to let you tell us about what was requested and what you took as your sort of skill set to meet that request.
Very interesting. Don Bosco requested someone who could help write and implement accredited training. They wanted someone that could understand regulations and course structure. And I happen to be skilled in that area, having done it for the last 10 or so years. So it was really interesting that they actually requested someone with my specific skill set.
So you're doing that in Australia?
Yes.
And what, in what sector?
So in the vet sector for in Victoria. So I worked with quite a few private providers here and working with ASQA regulator.
Okay. So this is exactly what they were kind of wanting. They had a number of courses they wanted to introduce to their curriculum at Don Bosco. But this Don Bosco, where is it? It's in Salialonga, which is
On the bigger of the two islands in Samoa, but not the main island, I think we call it. So
yeah,
it's on Savai'i, which is a more traditional island. So it's not as advanced as Upolu, where Apia is, but they're working on it.
yeah. Well, I mean, in 1993-94, I was actually in Samoa as well, but I was on up here or near, and I was at Don Bosco that they set up there. So they've been doing great work in education, because I find that a lot of the education provided is really academic, and it's taking kids through curriculums that are kind of akin to our HSC or VCE or whatever it is in the various states, and I think New Zealand curriculums, that sort of thing. It doesn't always suit. And there wasn't anything much before these Don Boscos were set up to build the vocational skills. So
Exactly.
yeah, very conscious and aware of the kind of environment you were in. But you, as you say, you're on the more traditional island, on the big island.
Yeah.
And tell us about sort of when you went to your placement and kind of how you were feeling about, landing in Samoa in the first instance, traveling across to the other island, what you found and how it felt to you just initially.
Well, I was very excited about the placement because I felt that I had the skills and knowledge to do what they requested. So I was really quite excited about the project itself. I did a little bit of research before I left here and had a look at what their regulator was like online. There wasn't a lot of information, but so I felt very comfortable with what the project was. A bit hesitant though about the arriving on one island, having to catch a ferry to another island, having to move to a little village. It was all a bit daunting, but fortunately I was met by another PALMS volunteer, Helena, when I got off the plane at 6 o'clock in the morning or something, and she was very kind, and we went straight from the airport to the ferry, hopped on a ferry and got across and went straight to our placement. So very quickly she made me feel very comfortable and at ease with the whole transition. It was very quick, but exciting.
So you kind of you're opening your eyes after getting off the plane, and it's daylight is emerging, and then you go straight to a ferry. You don't even go back into the capital.
Straight to the ferry, and because Helena thought we wouldn't catch the 6 o'clock ferry. There's not a lot of ferry trips, and if you miss one, you've got to wait a couple of hours. So she had planned that we might have to sit and wait and have breakfast at the little shop there. But we were there on time for the ferry, so she said, "Quick, let's run, get on the ferry." So we, so yes, within minutes of arriving in Samoa, I was already on the ferry on my way across.
So Helena was working at Don Bosco in Salialonga. We do try to. This is part of our belief in things being done well when you have a cluster of people who come from our preparation, and so over the following weeks and months, how did that help you to kind of engage in the community, get to understand what was going on?
Oh, well, fortunately, I arrived a few weeks before, or a week or so before school started. So Helena, who was the English teacher there at the school on the academic side, had some time, which was great. And so she just took me to the shops, and showed me how to catch a taxi and where things were. So we spent the week familiarising myself with the environment. So that was really, really helpful. A lot of very practical tips. She's a very practical lady, Helena.
Yeah.
And also introducing me to the Salesians. So we lived on the same compound as the Salesian priests and brothers who are Don Bosco. So I got to know them. So it was really helpful that I had that week and that she wasn't working yet. And so then when school started the week later, she was able to introduce me to a few people and help me with the running of the school. She'd been there for a year. So it was very helpful to have just that assistance in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a serial volunteer. She'd been volunteering in 3 other countries before Samoa,
Yes, very experienced lady.
years before you met her. So
Yeah.
yeah, as you say, had a very practical and clear understanding of how to go about it.
And like she'd source the best shops to buy, your produce or this or that. She knew. But also we had been emailing. I knew I was going on that placement several months before I went. So we had actually been emailing on and off over the 6 months or so beforehand. So that was really nice. She'd send photos of activities that were happening. So I already felt that I understood the layout of where I was going to be going to as well. So when I came into the school for the first time, I already felt quite familiar with it because I'd already seen lots of photos. I'd seen some photos of some staff and things. So that was really helpful that Helena and I had corresponded before I got there as well.
Okay, and then you still though have to engage with people that of a culture you not immersed in previously.
Yeah.
And what did you find? Were they welcoming? Were they ready to just wrap their arms around you? Or were they a little bit wary?
Oh, well, they were very welcoming, but Samoans are not big on showing physical displays of affection. So they were a bit hesitant, but I found out it wasn't necessarily because of me or anything. It was more their culture. But they were very excited about the project I was coming to as well. So the teachers that were directly going to be affected by what I had to do, had been sort of a little bit prepared, informed what I was coming there to do. So they were very excited about it and very keen to include me in what they were doing already and to help me with
So
what I
giving
needed to do.
what was going on already, which is a great way to start. So
Yes.
you don't go in sort of all guns blazing saying, "Hey, you should be doing this," before
Yeah,
you.
no, no,
Yeah.
that's not a good way to do it here in Australia anyway. So a lot of what I did was bring my experience from how I deal with providers and teachers, trainers here in Australia. I took that with me to Samoa. That was very helpful. Even though it's a different culture and different language and things, teachers are pretty much the same anywhere, I realised. So I sort of took the same approach, which was very helpful as well. And my approach was always, you get to know your trainers first, your teachers first, before you start telling them what they have to do. Because compliance is such a weird role in an RTO, but very vital. So I took that approach. But what was really wonderful was that the regulator, SQA, Samoan Qualifications Authority, they were aware I was coming on board to Don Bosco, and they were very keen to meet me and work with me as well. So that was incredibly helpful that the regulator was prepared to welcome me as well. That was really wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. So how did that happen? Did you go to the main island then? Are they based there or?
Yes, they're based on the main island. So very early on, end of term one, so I'd only been there a couple of months, they had the big annual conference. So they have an annual conference. And they had asked, they'd already met me through emails and things, but they had asked for me and one of the other teachers to do a presentation on
Ah,
behalf of Don Bosco. So immediately they were, so sort of put me on show, which was quite interesting. But yeah, so through emails initially, but then when I was at the conference, they were very keen to introduce me to all the key players and the regulator, and talk to me about what I was planning on doing and things. So it was really wonderful.
it became something of the star attraction.
A little bit, it was a bit overwhelming. I'm not used to that, but it was great. It just meant that I knew that the work I was going to try and do and implement was going to be welcomed. I wasn't doing something that no one wanted. And I think that was the best thing, that I was very, everyone was very keen to assist me to get this job done
Hmm, hmm.
because they really wanted it.
In the first area that you were working in, subject area, and the teachers, were they doing at the time? They were teaching in which area? And
So it was all the trades areas. So at Don Bosco in Salalonga,
yeah,
they had the 5 trade areas already working with their provider specific courses. So carpentry, welding, plumbing, automotive and hospitality. So they were already running a bit like the school that you would have worked at
yeah,
in Apia.
yep.
They had a great technical program going. It's
Mhm.
just that it wasn't nationally accredited. So that was what they wanted to do.
The student
Um,
was going to help the students to be identified as someone who'd done an accredited course, and then
Correct.
they were going to be, work ready, and that made a hell of a difference to the job.
Work ready and ready to also then, if they want to do further studies, either at the university or in New Zealand and Australia, they could
Yeah,
directly go to that.
yeah.
But
It's a great opportunity for them. I mean,
yeah, oh,
as you say,
wonderful.
in the more remote island where they probably never had anything like that as an opportunity.
There were only a few other technical schools on the island,
Yeah,
um, and a few of them had bothered to be registered with the regulators at SQA, but no one had bothered to apply for accredited training because it is a lot of work, a lot of paperwork,
yeah.
um, and a little bit of knowledge of standards and what the regulator wants. So some of the other providers were struggling, but SQA were doing the best they could to assist them. But
Mm.
that was my area of knowledge and skills. So I was able to get them with one course accredited very quickly. So
Very,
which was great.
yeah. And so, did you have time with the students as well? Did you?
Not in the first 2 years. So my role, even in Australia, is always working with teachers, trainers, not the students, although the end result of my work is the graduation day and the certificates they receive. So it was mainly focused on getting the trainers ready to go. They had done a lot of work already with Father Mosesi, who was the priest that actually sent the request to Palms,
Yeah.
but unfortunately he had been moved to another location by the time I'd started. Um,
These are some of the challenges that
yes,
have
that
these.
was
I mean, we have people going into places, and all of a sudden, the person who requested them and has the idea of what they want to achieve, they're gone somewhere else.
gone. That
Huge
wasn't helpful.
and capable people they try to kind of take them to get other things working, and yeah, so that would be a challenge.
That was definitely a challenge, but we got there in the end. It took a
Yeah,
while. But so yeah, my first 2 years were with the teachers and the curriculum and getting everything up and running. But fortunately, I stayed for a third year to get it all to be there the first time it was delivered, and that was when I spent a lot of time with students because I wanted to make sure they were understanding what they were doing and the accredited program and all the assessments. And there's a lot of paperwork, as I've said. So I spent a lot of time with the students, and that was incredibly rewarding.
Right.
I didn't think I would enjoy that as much as I did because I've spent so much time with trainers and teachers, but not with students. So this was such a delightful year, watching them grow, the students, watching the teachers grow because
Yeah.
they're delivering accredited training for the first time
Yeah.
and under challenging times because of COVID, but then the students just flourishing and just thoroughly enjoying the whole program and the process. And that was great, because if the students weren't enjoying the structure, it's far more structured and very time constraints and all of that.
Yeah.
But the students really thrived and loved it, and that was so wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, having that third year to see that happening, I mean, because what you've put in place really is something that now is going to sustain that school over many years, and many students are going to take advantage out of that because their teachers are teaching accredited programs
Yeah.
and to do it. So that's great satisfaction in that.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So it's running quite well this year, from what I can tell. Every now and again, a teacher comments on something or asks me, where was this, paperwork or whatever. So I believe it's running, and so there's 3 programs running this year, I believe, not just 2. So
there's hospitality, which you were mentioned, I think.
yeah. So we got the certificate 1 in trades accredited in 2018. The certificate 1 in hospitality, and is accredited in 2020, just at the beginning of that year. So the students were able to do a certificate 1 in hospitality. And then this year they're running for the first time certificate 2 in construction trades.
Right.
We got that accredited at the beginning of this year. So that's very exciting.
It is. It is. So you've obviously kept in contact to just see how things are going along.
Yeah, yeah.
This is one of the issues. I mean, with the international development generally, once the kind of person who's been responsible for sifting to set things up goes away, it can all fall over unless it's been really underpinned well, and that the people responsible for an ongoing implementation have been well prepared. So that must be satisfying as well, that you can see it's still
very satisfying. And I think that was really important. I stayed for that 3rd year, which is why I did it. Was although I'd put all the paperwork and all the processes in place, it's difficult to run a program for the first time, even in Australia. Like, that's part of life here as well. So assisting the trainers to go through it, both programs, hospitality and trades once, was just really good. And then I've left them with all those documents, and they felt more confident too. You could see them growing in confidence and thoroughly enjoying the process. So it could have easily all fallen over this year. They might not have, they might have decided it was all too hard, but I think they've taken real pride in it, the teachers, which is great, because I took them on the journey to write a lot of the lesson plans and delivery plans and own some of the resources, and things like that. So in my 2 years previous, and then while we were running it, I expected the trainers to put a lot of input into it, which they were hesitant in the beginning. And I thought it was from lack of knowledge and language barriers, but it turns out it's just the cultural way. They didn't want to tell me what to do. And I learned that really late in the 3rd year, which was, at least I learned it, and I wish they'd sort of been a bit more upfront at the beginning.
This just happens from time to time. I mean, we one extreme example of it was where we had a person going into work in a radio station, and they missed the orientation course before they were sent away. We were promised that they would come back after 6 months to do the orientation, and when they were sitting in the course, they said, "Oh, that's what's gone wrong," And what is wrong is that she'd gone in and she had started operating it as if by example to them, that this is how you can do things. And what happened for them was, oh God, we could never do that, because they just saw something happening in a an effective,
isolation.
someone who was well qualified and experienced,
Yeah,
didn't really want to then try it themselves because it was so far removed from where they were at.
yeah.
You know, unfortunately, at nut placement, you know, that it didn't really get, they didn't really get to recover that situation because they just,
No.
yeah,
But I learned as I was handing things over towards the end of my third year, and the program, the first time running, was coming to a close. The teachers were then saying to me, oh, would it be all right if next year we did it this way, or would it be all right if we added this in? And I went, yes, of course, but I wish you'd told me that like 2 years ago. So that was really interesting. But they really, I was pleased to see before I left them taking ownership of their individual courses. So the trades program, which is written by SQA and regulated by them, it was built up of 9 different courses, and each one had a different subject. So safety, plumbing, welding, and all of that. And that lent really well to how Don Bosco ran their courses anyway, which was great. I didn't have to do a lot of change of timetabling or where the teachers sat in their sort of job. We just kept the course so that when the welding course was on, the welders took over, and it was in subject courses. So it worked out really, really well, and so they were able to take ownership of certain parts of it and work together, which was a new thing for them too, across the whole year. So it was great to see them do that. By the end of the year, there was some teachers had worked together to share workshop space or to share time, because we were still catching up with the 6 weeks we'd lost through COVID shutdown in Samoa. And they actually talked about it and shared timetable and workshop space and things. And I thought, they're working together, that's great. So they really, really took ownership of it. And I'm pleased to see it's still here, that it's going on this year.
Yeah, that's great. So you then, you completed your third year, but this was as you say, an indicator. It was a COVID year. Samoa didn't actually have COVID, though, Dave.
No. So we didn't. Still don't, I believe. But what the Prime Minister did, of course, in the April, like everyone else, he shut the borders and shut down everything. So we had 6 weeks. So that was over Easter and the school holiday break and everything anyway. But he shut everything down for that 6 weeks, and then we just slowly started opening things up. So we lost vital weeks of a program that was so new when we were trying to, everyone get used to everything. So it was challenging, but also then he kept the borders closed, which I think is very sensible. So we've had Samoa's had no tourists since April of 2021. And therefore it meant that a lot of the hospitality venues were shut, and we were trying to do certificate 1 in hospitality with some field trips and real life experiences. So that added another challenge, mainly for the hospitality course, not so much for the trades course. But fortunately on our island there was some hospitality venues stayed open as best as they could, and when we realised they were open, we were able to connect with them, and the students got some really good valuable experiences, but not with tourists. They did it with other Samoans as customers, but still they got to see it. Yeah, they got a lot of time there, which was great. So a touch of what we wanted, but it would have been a little bit more beneficial if there'd been actual foreign tourists, but no, never mind. And still not this year. So, I mean, I really would have thought, as I'm sure the world would have, this would be all over by now. But so they've commenced the hospitality program again, which is great. But again, there's no foreign tourists for them to learn experiences with. But the teachers were so good about it last year, at sourcing information from the internet and other, resources to try and accommodate teaching the students about servicing people from different cultures.
Well, that's right. I mean, we're called Palangi in Samoa, and the Palangi are very different to the Samoans in their preferences to, in hospitality.
Everything.
Absolutely everything, and their expectations are quite different, and running into those and bumping into that would be a very useful thing for the students, I imagine.
Okay.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
it's going to happen.
But it also, yeah, but also what was sad is that I kept saying to the students, you'll get work, you'll get jobs once Savai understands what they've learned in the Certificate 1 in hospitality. But of course, there's not a lot of venues open, so there's not a lot of employment opportunities, unfortunately.
No.
But hopefully, the students that have got the Certificate 1 in hospitality will either do further studies or just hold on to it for a little bit, longer. And when borders do open and tourists start returning to Samoa, hopefully they'll get the opportunity, they work so hard for. So it didn't affect the trades guys so much, and there was 25 of them in the end. So that was our bigger course, was the trades course.
Yep.
But certainly impacted the hospitality students.
Yeah, well, it's to be hoped that that does open up soon. For you, of course, you came back from a COVID-free Samoa at the end of your third year there, and it didn't matter where you were coming from. It seems you had to be locked up into quarantine.
Sure, yeah, 14 days.
That's not kind of the re-entry that we expect for people. I mean, in years past, certainly there's issues when one returns home. There's challenges when one returns home, adjusting again to your own culture after being so long in another. And you were 3 years. How did that all play out for you?
Well, I just wanted to get home. So the stress, I think, so there's two things. The one was the stress of not knowing how I was going to get home or when, because of uncertainties of borders, and especially in Australia with all the different states opening and closing borders and travel and things. And then Samoa were having very limited flights out of the country. I don't think they had any flights into the country for months. So for me, it was I was very stressed about just getting home, which I did get home with after one little hiccup. But for me, the 14 days in quarantine was probably a lot easier than for other people, because for the first time in 3 years, I had running hot water, I had a TV, I had food that was, different varieties and things, and I had a double bed. So I actually, and I was used to being on my own. I'd done half of my placement in Samoa on my own.
Yeah.
So 18 months with people, 18 months on my own.
Yeah.
So I was kind of used to entertaining myself and being on my own. It was a little bit hard, considering I just wanted to get home and see my family, and they were so close yet so far away.
Yeah.
But I do believe that I was better suited, than a lot of people, for being that 14 days of isolation.
You kind of walk into a kind of luxurious situation.
Well, yes, it was kind of luxurious, yes.
we learn to appreciate, I think, on placements things more. The little things become really wonderful things that I think that. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like one of the things that people sometimes confront when they come home is this: why is there so many tubes of toothpaste to choose from on the supermarket shelf? Or why? I mean, I was able to live without all that, and it was unnecessary. So how do you feel? How does that make,
Well, so it's I agree with you, all of that. There's too much choice, too much stuff in the world. But I've also come back to I sort of it was where I was at life. I didn't keep much stuff going to Samoa, so I put a little bit of stuff in storage, but pretty much I'd ended one life, went to Samoa, and then coming back, I thought I would enjoy setting myself up again. So I'm actually living with my daughter and her partner and my grandson, and so I'm in a little room where I have very little stuff, and I have just a small amount of stuff in storage still. And the thought of moving into a house and furnishing it is really odd. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to get as much stuff as I had before. I think I will continue to live with very little. So it's a really unusual space to think, I'm quite happy living just in one little room at the moment with just a few clothes and, um, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what I do when I actually go to finish at home. I just, all those little knickknacks you always, buy and things, I just don't think I'm going to do
Yeah.
that.
Former lives seem to be about acquiring things, and that's the way we understand that it improves our lives a little bit of a trinket here, or more than a trinket. I mean,
Yeah,
satisfying is to go out and buy that new lounge suite or whatever it is.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and then they're the ways we satisfy ourselves. But what we seem to learn in placement is that there's a lot of engagement and relationship and all those things that provide the sort of satisfactions of life more than the kind of acquisition of goods, etc.
yeah, yes, agreed. So, I mean, for me too, a wardrobe, as in clothing, I didn't have a lot in Samoa, didn't need a lot. I'm wearing one of my Politasi, so I got, I acquired some Samoan clothes while I was there, but it was all summer, and I've come back here and I don't have enough clothes to wear to work every day or to, for the winter, for the cold. So it's even getting enough clothes to
Yeah,
sort of keep up with lifestyle here in Melbourne is really challenging as well. I just don't feel I need that many, but you do, yeah. So
yeah. But
it's very it's unusual, but it's interesting.
yes, indeed, it is. Well, Helen, that's been a great kind of life cycle, if you like, of your engagement in the program. Um, I there's probably more things we could talk about. Is there anything in particular outstanding that you would like to sort of provide as a message to those who are interested in engaging in the program?
Um, well, certainly go for it if that's what you want. It was a wonderful experience. But what you said in the beginning too, it doesn't matter what you think your skills and skills and experience are and what you can bring to the table. Still volunteer, still register, which is what I did. I registered on one day, and at the end of the interview with someone, I think called Mary or something, I said, "So what jobs do you think my skills will lend to?" And she said, "Oh, maybe some, government funding application work for little villages and things." And I thought, "Oh, that sounded exciting." And I think within a week, the Father Mazzesi put in the request for my exact skills and knowledge. So when I registered, I honestly had no idea what would be requested of me, what I could bring to the table, but I wanted to register. So my thing would be just register, just list everything down. And because I told my family the week after I'd registered, I said, "Oh, by the way, I've registered with a volunteer organisation. I might, be disappearing overseas for 2 years." But I said, "Don't worry, there won't be anything coming up that from my skills and knowledge for ages. Don't worry." So, but
It's
yeah, I think it's really worth just registering,
yeah,
just getting to know and maybe take an opportunity. Fortunately for me, I knew what I was going to be doing and really confident that my skills and knowledge would be right. But I
yeah,
think it's worth too just taking it at the chance if that's what you want to do.
yeah, great.
That's what I was prepared to do,
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it was
yeah,
far more rewarding and
yeah.
comfortable than I had expected in that respect. Yeah,
Yeah, it can be daunting, but I mean, we take people through the program one step at a time, and advise too that, as I was just suggesting, that that you do talk to your families. I mean, families can provide something of a block because it's sort of but we need you here, but yeah. They really, at first it's not something you think, oh gosh, I won't be able to contact them and all those sorts of things. But it actually, you can still communicate, and especially
yeah,
I mean, what we're doing now can be done with in Samoa, and then there's just texting and all those things. When I was away,
yeah.
I'd write a letter. There was a computer I could write it on, and I sent the letter home, and they got it. And, by the time they replied, it was sort of 2 weeks after I'd written it, and then by the time I got it again, it's another week. And I'm reading these things that I talked about in the letter, and going, "Oh, when was that? Oh, I mustn't have been feeling really good then." I mean,
Yes,
but
yeah,
so it is not something that I mean, you were on more remote island, but it's still something. Communication still can happen with home.
Oh, absolutely. And no, that was one of the things that actually benefited me with COVID was more people were reaching out through Zoom meetings and things. So I actually, because of COVID, my daughter organised for her daughters, my granddaughters, to go onto Children Messenger. So I actually FaceTimed them in that third year, right? Whereas we hadn't bothered with that before. So that was wonderful. I felt more connected with my family and particularly my granddaughters because of COVID, because everyone was just getting onto the bandwagon of communicating online. So I was really well connected that third year, which was great, but it made me more homesick. So I was keen to get home then. But yeah, so there's definitely ways of communicating now. And as I say, I think that's one of the things COVID has taught the world, that you can communicate virtually or whatever you call it quite easily now. So, which is great.
Well, Helen, thanks so much for giving your time again to sharing your story, so that we can kind of reassure others that there's opportunities possible, even with a set of skills that may not appear to be immediately on our website. So you can go to our website, you can look at all the opportunities and go, oh, there's nothing there for me. And reassuring people that, yes, just do apply. And then we do sometimes then talk to our partner organisations, because we know where they're at with some of the work that they're doing. And we say, well, look, we do have this person with a set of skills that might be of value to you. Let us. And they do come back to us at times and say, hey, yeah, this is actually what we're really wanting to do right now. And we talk about that a bit more and then put together a position description. So thanks for, reassuring people of that in particular.
Absolutely.
And also of, how you met the challenges and engaged in the program. And look, it's been a wonderful success. And I'm thinking the Samoans must still be very, very thankful. Thank you, Helen.
Well, I'm very proud of the work that was achieved by all of us. It was a very rewarding placement. Yes. So
Great.
Very lucky.
Good. Okay, that's Helen Colla, and we'll hopefully see your interest develop because of that particular engagement. Goodbye for now. We'll see you next time.